Finding legal pathways for migration to seek safety and on a humanitarian basis, while discouraging unlawful migration that feeds exploitation and human trafficking. So today, I applaud China for stepping up. I applaud Canada. You can tell what I'm thinking about China. I won't get into that.
This is my first video update from Athens, Greece on this Sunday afternoon. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the TV interview that Russian President Vladimir Putin gave the other day, where he said a lot of interesting things. He made a lot of interesting statements during this interview. Perhaps the one statement that he made that is gaining the most traction and getting the most attention is where the Russian president announced that Russia will be deploying tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus. They're not going to be transferring nuclear weapons. They're going to be deploying nuclear weapons to Belarus. Now, Putin said that this has been something that he has been discussing with Lukashenko for a while now, and Russia finally agreed to do it. It's something that Lukashenko has been asking for, and Russia has agreed to deploy those tactical nukes. And Putin made it a point to say that this deployment of tactical nukes does not break any type of non-proliferation treaties, and that what Russia is doing with Belarus is what the United States has been doing for many, many years with their allies in Eastern Europe, which is deploying nuclear weapons to various countries in Eastern Europe. And there is a big difference between deploying and transferring. In this instance, Russia is deploying those nuclear weapons to Belarus. So Putin did mention in the interview that this is a type of response to the UK's announcement the other day that they will be using depleted uranium in Ukraine. They're going to be arming the Ukraine military with depleted uranium. He did mention that this is a type of response to that announcement from the UK government. But I see this as even more than that. I see this as Russian President Vladimir Putin saying to the collective West, I see your depleted uranium. I was crossing that crosswalk over there, right there, and there was a car that went past the zebra stripes. I was crossing the green, and there was a car that went past the zebra stripes. And as I was crossing the crosswalk, the zebra stripes, the car decided to back up into me and hit me. It was, so I was like, Refile, I'm like, friend, Pupas, where are you going, man? Anyway, he was a cool guy. He's like, dude, I'm sorry, I didn't see you back there. He's like, I went over the light and I went past the crosswalk, and so I decided to back up and I didn't see you. Anyway, it was a green light for me to walk, so I had the right of way. Anyway, oh boy, all right, so that was an interesting little adventure, but he was a cool guy. He was really cool. Anyway, let's what was I saying? Let's see. Yes, Putin. The way I think of this is Putin going to the collective West and saying, I see your depleted uranium and your State Department announcement that you're going to be appointing a special envoy to Belarus for another go at regime change, and I'm going to up you deployment of Iskander missiles, nuclear-capable Iskander missiles. That's pretty much what Putin is saying. Obama said it best a long time ago in an interview. He said that Russia in this part of the world has escalatory dominance. So that was one of the big announcements that Putin made in this TV interview. He also said a bunch of other things that I found to be very interesting. He said that whatever ammunition the collective West provides to Ukraine, Russia can produce 3 times more. So the European Union, they're now looking underneath the sofa cushions to find money and ammunition and any way to increase the production of ammo for the Ukraine military. And Putin is just basically saying, whatever you guys produce, whatever you guys give Ukraine, we'll just 3x it. That's simple. And if the European Union and the United States somehow find a way to really ramp up their production and to match Russia's 3x, well then Russia can just go to China and say, okay, so you caught up to our production levels. We're now going to 10x your ammo production because we've got China at our back. It's a can't win. It's a can't win situation for the collective West when it comes to weapons production and ammunition production. They simply cannot win. A similar statement was made the other day about tanks. Something like the collective West is providing 400, or they're trying to provide 400 tanks to Ukraine, and Russia is going to be producing something like 1,500 tanks this year alone. That was an interesting statement from Putin as well. And he also said that with regards to the US dollar, he said that Russia would use the US dollar in trade, because he was talking about how Russia and China have now agreed to settle all of their trade, as well as trade with other nations, trade that Russia is taking part in with other nations, say nations in Africa or whatever. They're going to do that all in yuan, in Chinese currency. And Putin said, we'd use the dollar if we could, but the US doesn't let us use the dollar. And I thought that was a really smart statement. Simple, but smart from the Russian president. Because the narrative is that Russia, along with China, is trying to sink the US dollar reserve currency. And yes, they are sinking the US dollar reserve currency, but I'm trying to think, which way do I want to go? But to be honest, let's keep on walking this way. But to be honest, it's the collective West that has cut Russia out. So even if Russia wants to use the dollar, they're not allowed to use the dollar. So what does Russia and every sanctioned country do in that scenario? Well, they have to look for alternatives. And in comes China with their currency, and they say, we've kind of got an alternative, and along with BRICS, we can put something together that can help you guys out. So I thought that was a really smart statement, because it really tears apart the narrative of Russia and China somehow colluding to destroy the U.S. Reserve currency, the U.S. dollar, which is what is happening. But once again, this is all self-inflicted. It's all self-inflicted by the Biden White House. They're the ones that cut Russia off. Russia did not cut them off. They're the ones that cut Russia off. And, Russia has to, it has to survive. It has to do business. It has to eat. And so it's going to look for alternative ways to do what they need to do. And a country as big and as powerful and important as Russia is going to find those ways. And that's exactly what has happened. So there was a lot of other interesting things that Putin said, but I'm not going to get into the whole interview. It was once again an interesting interview with the Russian president. It's always interesting to hear Putin speak and talk about what's going on in the world. Let's now shift gears and focus our attention on Germany and Olaf Scholz, because Germany and Olaf Scholz, well, they are really taking a beating. And they're taking a beating not only from the United States with the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, which I'll get into in a bit, but they're also taking quite a beating from Poland. Poland is really sticking it to Olaf Scholz in Germany. And it's getting quite embarrassing to see the Polish Prime Minister, Morawiecki. He is digging into Germany nonstop, whether it's reparations, 1.3 trillion in reparations that Morawiecki is telling Olaf Scholz Germany needs to pay, or it's Poland telling Germany that they're just a bunch of slackers. Slackers, I tell you, you're slackers. And the Polish Prime Minister said the other day in a radio interview that he feels that Germany is just not doing enough to help Ukraine. And Morawiecki is warning Germany, he's ordering Germany that they really need to pick up the pace of money and weapons being sent to the Zelensky regime. And I'm looking for a quote from Morawiecki. Morawiecki also said in the interview that the EU is losing its appetite for more sanctions, and he's really worried about that. You know that Poland is really worried that Project Ukraine is going to crumble. And if that happens, well, the ruling government in Poland is also going to crumble, and it is going to be very, very embarrassing for them. Here we go. I found a quote here from the Polish Prime Minister, who said that Berlin is not as generous as it should be in providing Kiev with money and arms. Germany should be sending more weapons, sending more ammunition, and giving more money to Ukraine because they are the richest and the biggest country by far in the EU, he said. He also said that he insisted that he was not attacking the German government, but rather stating the obvious. You're a bunch of slackers, Olaf Scholz. You and Habeck and Baerbock, you're slackers. But I'm not criticizing you. I'm saying this out of love. Send more money to Zelensky and send more ammunition to Zelensky. Oh, poor Olaf Scholz. Poor Olaf Scholz. He is just getting beaten down by his buddies and allies. Seymour Hersh, he gave an interview a couple of days ago, and he said that the Biden White House, they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline because they were afraid that Olaf Scholz was not going to go along with Project Ukraine, and he was getting cold feet. So in order to make sure that Olaf Scholz had no other options left to him and was not going to approach Russia again and figure out a way to find some sort of ceasefire or some sort of off-ramp with the escalation in Ukraine, the Biden White House, they decided to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline, to burn all of Olaf Scholz's bridges. That's what Seymour Hersh said, and it makes sense because right around that time, in September, that September-October timeframe, the German government was very, very nervous, and they were very worried about their economic situation and the deindustrialization that was taking hold. And you could see that Olaf Scholz was starting to panic, and he was getting a lot of pressure from German business. And I think that he would have re-engaged with Russia if Nord Stream was still around. I actually believe that. I think that Scholz would have folded to the pressure of German business, and he would have said, look, let's just open up the pipelines and let's just find a way to de-escalate from this Project Ukraine thing that the Biden White House is pushing on us. And so I believe that what Seymour Hersh said is accurate in this interview, and the Biden White House was absolutely concerned about Germany's commitment to Project Ukraine. They were worried that Germany was going to want to re-engage with Russia and to find a way to de-escalate the conflict in Ukraine. Olaf Scholz was under a lot of pressure from the German business community, and the Biden White House was worried that Germany, they just didn't have their heart into Project Ukraine. They weren't as committed as, say, Poland or Estonia or Lithuania and Latvia. And so the best way to get Germany to fully commit to Project Ukraine and to prevent Germany from backsliding was to just blow up the pipeline. And that is exactly what the Biden White House did. And they got Germany's commitment because, to be quite honest, there was no other bridges, no other avenues left for Germany to go. It was game, set, match when the Biden White House blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And I'm positive that blowing up the pipeline probably freaked little Olaf Scholz out. I bet you Olaf Scholz was probably like, this Joe Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son guy, he's crazy. I'm sure that's what little Olaf Scholz said. Anyway, since we're talking about Germany, let's talk about their foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock. She was recently in Georgia. The WEF globalists and the European Union, they dispatched Baerbock to Georgia to make sure that Georgia wasn't thinking about moving away from their EU course, their EU path, because Georgia did have those protests a couple of weeks ago, protests against the European Union, and that freaked out the collective West. They didn't really report on the anti-EU protests that took place in Georgia. And then you also had a statement the other day from the Georgian Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister of Georgia, he said that he wants to prevent Georgia from Ukrainization. That is the term that he used. I am trying to find his quotes, which I have saved somewhere here. Ukrainization. That is an interesting choice of words. But, the Georgian Prime Minister is absolutely correct. The trajectory that Georgia was moving towards was a catastrophic repeat of what has happened in Ukraine. And here we go. And the Prime Minister is absolutely correct in saying that Georgia has to avoid this at all costs. Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili believes that Georgia is threatened by the Ukrainization plan, which consists in opening a second front against Russia. The real danger that our country is facing today is the existing plan, a conspiracy against our country. This is the so-called Ukrainization plan, he said at a plenary session of Parliament. Yeah, he's right. Ukrainization. That's exactly what the collective West wants to see happen to Georgia. So good on the Prime Minister for calling that out. But the globalists, they dispatched Annalena Baerbock to make sure that Georgia does not deviate from the Ukrainization plan. And she was in Georgia and she pledged that Germany would support Georgia in its path towards EU membership. And she warned Georgia not to deviate from their EU path. She said that Georgia belongs in the European Union. I think I remember another quote that Annalena Baerbock told the people of Georgia. I think she told the people of Georgia that I think she warned the people of Georgia that they're making a 360-degree turn away from the European Union. Yeah, I think that's her quote. I think she warned the Georgian people, don't make a 360-degree turn away from the European Union. Oh, Annalena Baerbock. Yeah, that's who the globalists send to Georgia to keep Georgia in line. They send Baerbock. Yeah. Oh boy. Anyway, let's talk about EU sanctions and 11th sanctions package, and this is also my clown world for the day. And the EU is preparing an 11th round of sanctions. And from what I understand, these sanctions are not really going to sanction Russia. They're not really going to place more sanctions on Russia because there really are no more things to sanction Russia over. The collective West is sanctioned out, at least in terms of Russia. But what the EU 11th sanctions package is going to do is that they're going to work on closing any type of sanctions loopholes. That's going to be the purpose of the 11th sanctions package. And this means that the EU will even sanction countries and entities that try to move around, to work around the EU 10 sanctions packages. So if you're a country or an entity that has figured out one of these loopholes and is doing business with Russia, well, then the EU is going to try and come after you and sanction you as well. The EU has gone sanctions crazy, and it's getting so bad. It's getting so bad, and I have to sit down for this and read this out to everybody. That the EU is so obsessed with sanctions and putting together an 11th sanctions package that they are threatening sanctioning Central Asian countries and sanctioning, according to the Telegraph, washing machine trade, which is helping Russia fix its army. Now, I am going to read you this Telegraph article, which explains what's going on, but the title is correct. The EU is threatening to sanction washing machine trade, helping Russia fix its army. The European Union could slap restrictions on countries helping Russia acquire washing machines and used cars to repair its battle-stricken fleet of tanks. Officials monitoring trade flows to Moscow have noticed a significant uptake in the trade of consumer goods between the bloc and the Kremlin's traditional allies in Central Asia. It is feared that the new routes, which have jumped up in activity between 60 and 80%, are being used by Russia to circumvent the implementation of Washington sanctions designed to cripple its war machine. The proposal could see any country, business, or individual restricted from accessing the single market if evidence is discovered that proves they have re-exported banned goods to Russia. Many of the goods being shipped contain so-called dual-use technologies, which have both military and civilian applications that are on the list of items prohibited for export to Russia. Officials have noted that it is mainly washing machines, secondhand cars, and cameras that are among the items leaving the EU for the likes of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. So, the European Union is going to sanction countries. In this Telegraph article, they're focusing on Central Asia. But in order to close the sanction loopholes, they are going to sanction countries that they believe are re-exporting dual-use consumer items to Russia, for which Russia is taking those consumer items and they're using the parts in those consumer items to fix up their tanks, their battered tanks, and their fighter jets. Oh boy. Their economy is in tatters, I tell you, in tatters. Isn't that what Ursula von der Crazy was telling us? Their economy is in tatters. Russia is in such bad economic shape that they are now removing microchips from washing machines and using those chips in their weapons of war. That was the speech that von der Crazy gave a few months ago, telling the whole world that Russia's economy is in tatters. First of all, if Russia has indeed figured out a way to extract parts and chips from mobile phones and cameras and washing machines and use those parts to fix up and power up their tanks and fighter jets, well then, what can I say? Russian engineers are freaking brilliant. That's all I can say there. And if that is indeed the case, well then, the collective West has zero chance of winning this conflict against Russia. I mean, zero chance, because, man, Russia has the technology to remove a chip from a camera and use it to power up an Iskander missile. I mean, where can you beat that? How can you compete with that? Yes? Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy. You're here visiting. Enjoy your stay in Athens. Take care.
Daily news.
Yes. Take care. So, I mean, if this is indeed the case, then the collective West has no chance. They have no chance. That Russian engineers are the absolute best if they can do this. And as far as Ursula is concerned, well, then I think that in 6 months she's going to be in a straitjacket, locked up in a padded room, and she's going to be like, but their economy was supposed to be in tatters. In tatters, she'll be like this, all bound up in a straitjacket. she's gonna go crazy, and she's gonna be like, "But I'm telling you, I read all the reports, and all the reports said tatters, tatters. You have to believe me. Please believe me. Tatters, tatters. I tell you, I saw video. I saw video of Russian scientists, of Russian engineers, removing chips from washing machines and using them to power up tanks. I saw it. You have to believe me. Please believe me. Someone believe me." That's going to be bad to crazy in 6 months. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rockfin and Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, and Telegram, and go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.